following is a presentation of Disruption Networks.
Join the Disruption Network crew Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center Block Party, 230 James Street in Utica, from 4 to 6 p.m. Music provided by our very own DJ East One. There will be vendors, grilling with the Utica Police Department, hands-on craft with BB Designs and Steamwork Ability Lab, seed bombs, lead safe demo, and come hang with Utica Fire Department. That's Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center, 230 James Street in Utica. The block party is hosted by the Home Ownership Center, the Mohawk Valley Association of Realtors, Steamworks Ability Lab, Lead-Free Mohawk Valley, Berkshire Bank, MVP Healthcare, BB Designs, and NeighborWorks America.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
Good evening out there, baseball fans across the USA. We are the Baseline here Sunday night. Utica, New York, Disruption Network. You can check us out on disruptionnetwork.net and all the other great content on disruptionnetwork.net. Here, as always, with my boy SPG. SPG, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, JP? What's up, everybody out there? I see we have some people tuning in already. My dad has joined in and says hello. Hi, Dad. I'm glad you're tuned in. We're going to be talking the latest news and notes around baseball. We're into June now, so that means that we are officially about 1/3 through the Major League Baseball season already. And by the end of the month, we'll be halfway there. Man, that went quick. 1/3 of the season already in the books.
So one of our first episodes, I remember talking about how we couldn't wait for the season to get here. We started, a week before the season, and now we're here. It's crazy. They jam a lot of baseball into a short amount of time. A lot of stuff going around Major League Baseball. We're going to get to some draft updates coming up here pretty soon.
It is Major League Baseball Draft Eve. The draft gets underway tomorrow on Monday, June 4th. Quick shout out to my friend Ashley tuning in, giving us a thumbs up. Thanks for checking out the show. So it is draft eve, and we're going to talk a little bit about the prospects in this year's draft and maybe speculate on where some of them might be drafted. I would like to see the league revamp the draft process a little bit. I don't know about you, but I would like to see more of a universal draft where instead of having international players eligible to be signed when they're, I think, 16 years old, you see some of these kids signing. And I would like to see some kind of draft system where they fall under that and make it more of a universal. And the draft would become more valuable to the teams at the bottom that tend to pick towards the top of the draft every year because they, it's been so long since some of these teams have had success. And it would even the playing field a little bit, I think, if they included the international players in the main draft pool. So, and sure, your Otanis and Hideki Matsuis and some of the guys from Japan and some of the Asian baseball leagues, they sign when they're older. So maybe you make like a maximum draft age, like between 18 and 22, 23 years old, you're eligible for the draft. And then after that, you can become a free agent, free to sign with any team.
Yeah, so the posting rules are about to change anyway with the next collective bargaining agreement.
Yep.
They're going to revamp at least the, from the Asian point of view, or I don't know if that's subject, if the same rules, the posting rules are the same with some of the Korean players that have come over as it is in the Japan leagues. But the Japanese, they currently have their system in place. But for the Latin American countries, it makes total sense. When, it's all about assigning them an age where they become draft eligible, like you said. And
it would be better for these young kids, these 16-year-olds that are, good young talent that look like someday they might become Major League Baseball players. In some of these countries, they just attract vulture types that just hang around the ballpark and just kind of pick on these kids and try to take advantage of them
under the umbrage of being a scout. Exactly.
They're using them for a payday rather than for the better, looking out for the kids. They don't have these kids
exploitation.
They don't have these kids benefiting them. They're not looking to benefit these kids at all. They're looking for a payday, and it causes some sketchy things, and it may even tie into performance-enhancing drug problems in baseball when you have these guys, just these sketchy people hanging around ballparks in the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or wherever it may be, trying to influence these young kids and trying to make money off them. So you would see that be a little bit better if those kids were eligible for the draft, I think, and there would still be some of it. There's no way you can get around it totally.
No, but it's going to be tasked upon the organization themselves to get themselves implanted into those countries if they're not already there deeply, because that's where the wealth of talent comes from. How many young stars come from Latin America that have been in that organization since, like you said, age 14, age 15.
Sure.
Like the Dodgers, I know, have a school that they send, under the guise that it's a school, but, they're really part of the organization, and then they sign at whatever, 16, like you just said.
And we talked a little bit off air about that, and if they aren't going to revamp this and include international players into a universal draft somehow, then, maybe Major League Baseball starts opening up, league-sponsored and MLBPA-sponsored schools. Kind of like the Dodgers do specific to their own team. Where these young players almost come to like a camp or a school for years and kind of cultivate their game and be surrounded by legit people.
But monitored, completely monitored, and done right by Major League Baseball rather than just the organization itself. We talked a little bit. I do remember that conversation now. I think it would make things a lot better. I don't know how you're going to do it, as far as a revamp from professional league to professional league. Maybe it turns out to be something like football does, where you would own the rights to that player, should that player want to come over. But how many teams are going to go wasting a draft pick with the posting rules, where you still have to post the money with the other organization over in Japan,
or the NHL too? What they do is kids are eligible when they're 18 years old, and they can be drafted by, and continue to play in college baseball. They can sign a contract in hockey, and they can continue to play in college hockey or junior hockey and continue their development there. And then a couple of years go by, and if they're not signed, then they go back into the draft a second time. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do, I think, to really get a system that works for everybody, and it's not an easy problem to fix. It really isn't. There's a lot of factors involved. There's a lot of different leagues around the world that you would somehow have to kind of come up with a standard with and have them agree to the standard to an extent. So yeah, there's a lot of work there that I think needs to be done. I'd like to see some changes, but won't be easy. So draft is tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on.
I can't wait.
We'll do a little bit of news and notes.
That's everything with the draft has changed since we were kids. It's starting to get some notoriety. It's on MLB Network now. There's coverage for it. It's a deep draft. I mean, there's a lot of rounds to the Major League Baseball draft.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a deep draft, and it is, kind of like hockey, like you just said. They can draft high school players. So it's different than the NBA. They make you go do the one and done in the NBA, and the NFL, I believe you need to be 3 years or 2 years removed from a high school program. So basically a sophomore you need to be to declare for the NFL draft. Maybe I'm not the NFL expert out there, but
I think it's a junior unless they redshirted, then they can come out after their sophomore.
Yeah, so 3 years removed from a high school program or something to the effect. So it's different in Major League Baseball. They take shots on guys at a very young age. They take the shot on them. I can't wait till we get to the 7th inning stretch when we talk about some not only the top number 1 overall picks, but also the worst number 1 overall picks.
We decided to do something a little bit different for our 7th inning stretch this week, where we give usually a collaborative top 7 list of some random topic. For example, last week we did the top 7 pitchers in Major League Baseball. And we each gave our list, but it was the same category. So this week we decided to split it up, and we're going to be each giving our own top 7 list in 2 different categories. So stick around for the 7th inning stretch a little bit later on in our show. We're going to be talking the top 7 worst number 1 overall picks of all time and the top 7 best.
Can't wait.
But before that, we're going to talk a little bit about the ongoings of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball just announced their Players of the Month, their Pitchers of the Month, and Rookies of the Month for the month of May. And Scooter Gennett is your NL Player of the Month.
My boy.
Batted .398 with 8 homers and 27 RBI in the month of May.
On fire.
And we mentioned it.
For who, Sean?
We mentioned it last week a few times that he could be a prime trade candidate coming into the trade.
He plays multiple positions. He's signed to a disgustingly friendly contract. How could you not? How could you not want to go out and get this kid?
Especially when he's playing like he is now.
28 years old. He's coming in. He's a late bloomer.
He's already got a home run in June, I believe.
I believe he was with Milwaukee. I think he was DFA'd by Milwaukee, right?
He was.
And
then he came up with Milwaukee.
Ends up with Cincinnati and just explodes. Eligibility at multiple positions in fantasy as well. So he's a really good fantasy guy.
It kind of all started with
if you're a fantasy guy out there.
Last year. It was the middle of the year. It might have been around this time, maybe a little bit.
He started hitting bombs.
Season. He had a game where he hit 4 home runs in the game. And, you kind of think, maybe it's a fluke. Scooter Gennett doesn't really have the reputation of having a big power bat. And then he just continued that for the rest of the season. And then this season, he's been incredible. Like I said, .398 average in the month of May.
You look at him in a full year with Milwaukee in 2016. He goes 14-56, 263. And then peaks it up. His first year in Cincinnati, he's .295, .342 on base percentage last year to go along with 27 homers and 97 RBIs. So basically, if you look at his last year and maybe the second half of 2016 was somewhere where he figured it out with Milwaukee. You look at the last year combined plus this year, he's a good player. He's a way above average major leaguer in that shorter period of time, and right now he's playing like one of the best in the game. As per the award.
That's right. So in your AL Player of the Month was a guy that I predicted would be MVP of the AL this season. Francisco Lindor of the Cleveland Indians batted .373, 10 homers, 23 RBI.
You knew he was going to click it, right?
He's coming around.
You knew he was going to click it.
Those Cleveland bats are hot right now. They've come around. It's just a matter of getting the bullpen figured out.
Yeah,
now.
You know what else is hot? The dumpster fire that's burning in the back end of that bullpen there.
Yeah, it hasn't been pretty there, especially in the last several weeks, last 3-4 weeks. It's been pretty bad.
Just waiting to get Dave to chime in. That's all I'm looking for.
I believe he is tuned in, so Dave, chime in if you have something to say about that.
Well, we got my girl Angie Johnson, my homegirl from high school, doing big things with BB Designs and Utica Love. Angie, if you got some time, why don't you type out some events that are going on around town so anybody locally can get a glimpse of what you got going on in Utica. But check her out at BB Design. She does a lot of collaborative efforts with our parent station here, Disruption Network. So thanks for tuning in, Angie. Appreciate it. Dave, in quotes, pretty bad. Yeah, the Indians bullpen has been pretty bad, but to their credit as a team, they're coming back and they're scoring runs, quality hitting in late innings. So they're not only is their bullpen looking pretty sketchy, but they're making their opponents' bullpens look pretty sketchy. So that's and they're in first place. They're in first place, and they have when you have a games lead when it's pluralized, and your games lead is over the probably going to sell very soon Detroit Tigers. At only 2 games above 500, and you have a games lead, I wouldn't be too concerned about that bullpen.
The bullpen is something that can be fixed.
Not with that lineup. With Jose Ramirez is going nuts. It's another guy that probably worth a mention here. He's up among the lead leaders in home runs.
I think he was your pick for AL MVP preseason when we talked about it. So both guys that we predicted.
Do you know who I picked? Do you remember who I picked for the NL? I don't know if you remember that, but I gave him the curse. I gave him like the Madden cover. You know, they put somebody.
Paul Goldschmidt?
It was Paul Goldschmidt. I picked Paul Goldschmidt, and I tanked him. Paulie, if you're out there and you're listening, somebody shows this to you, and you happen to listen to me, man, I'm sorry. And you're starting to pick it up.
He is.
Starting to pick it up.
He's got 3 home runs in the last week or so.
He's hitting some at home. He's avoiding the humidor curse.
There are some good signs for Paul Goldschmidt. I don't know if he's out of the woods quite yet, but yeah, compared to how things were just a week or 2 ago, things are starting to look a little better for him out there. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're finally winning some games too. I think they're back in first place in that division. At least they were coming into today. They're a half game up on Colorado now, so they are bouncing back a little bit. They've got some work to do, and they need to get A.J. Pollock back. But hopefully for Arizona Diamondbacks fans and for the team, for their sake, they've come out of that horrific stretch. But
we shall
see.
You don't have a whole lot of options out there. As we stated many times on the show, I thought that coming into the season that was going to be the best division in baseball. It certainly has the caliber of players up and down that division to be a very challenging division, and you got the Dodgers out there playing really good baseball.
They're winning some games, but of course Kershaw now is hurt
again. In the stretch that they got coming up, does it really hurt to have? I mean, understandably, it hurts to have Kershaw out at any time, but let him get right. Let him get right and come back, because clearly he wasn't right. He went back out on the DL for his back. And
San Francisco is winning some games. They've won 3 in a row. They're tied with the Dodgers, and they're 2.5 behind the Diamondbacks for the division lead. And they have Madison Bumgarner coming back in 2 days.
So they're going to hang around too with the quality of veterans that they have. Andrew McCutchen and Evan Longoria starting to turn it around a little bit down there. San Francisco's going to stick around, and we knew that they were going to. Too much talent on the top 4 teams in that division, and if you look at the bottom team in that division, there's a lot of talent, and we're going to get to that later, the San Diego Padres. There's a lot of talent and help on the way for the San Diego Padres, and they're not going to be as awful as they are right now. They're going to get a big, large return should they decide to put their ace reliever, Brad Hand, on the market. They're going to get a big quality return. They got a young rookie down there right now named Christian Villanueva, who having a pretty good year, 14 homers and maybe about 35 RBIs.
Yeah, he's having a very good year.
He's hitting about around 240 or so, and maybe striking it out a bit more than you like. But
he was not a big name prospect.
Neither was Albert Pujols.
So yeah, and that's not taking anything away.
No, totally.
It just means he wasn't really on people's radars coming into the season.
And we've seen that before.
And we have.
Miss Diaz had
Jose Ramirez
a breakout year
in a way.
Another guy. Although you look at that guy's tangible skill set, Jose Ramirez, and he's 5 tools. Hits for power, hits for average, drives the ball to all fields, is fast. plays multiple positions. You wonder how a guy like that wasn't on somebody's radar at any given time in their young career. But hey, Jose Ramirez getting it done for the Indians.
Dan Lindor, who was the player of the month, and the NL pitcher of the month. No surprise, second month in a row, Max Scherzer. 6 starts in the month of May, 4-0 record, 2.21 ERA, a whip under 1, and 63 strikeouts in just over 40 innings.
Not even fair.
So he continues to roll on, heading towards another Cy Young Award.
It's like when the teams try to sneak a 14-year-old into the Little League World Series. And he goes like 43 innings through the whole tournament.
Danny Almonte.
That's his name, Danny Almonte. He is the Danny Almonte of Major League Baseball. Seriously, he's playing in a whole different league. He's
another guy who's playing like a Danny Almonte of Major League Baseball is the AL pitcher of the month, Justin Verlander. 6 starts, 3-2 record. A little surprised he actually lost 2 times with how good his stats are for the month of May. 0.86 ERA,
not even
0.7.
It's another guy, and he's playing in the tougher league, more bats, playing in a good division. He's played the Yankees twice, shut him down twice
in a hitter's park there too.
Just
50 strikeouts in 41
hitter's park.
And
yeah,
2/3 innings.
Look at that team ERA, and you tell me that's a hitter's park, right?
Yeah, it is though.
I understand
it is, but look what those pitchers
for sure.
are doing.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Traditionally yielding, the most bombs.
Now
they took out the Hill, and now all of a sudden,
Tal's Hill is gone, and look what happens. Your rookies of the month in the AL: Gleyber Torres, 317, 9 homers, 27 RBI.
Rookie of the month. He might have been really close in the Player of the Month voting.
He had to have been up there.
You ask and you shall receive, Yankees fans.
In the NL,
not to disappoint.
Outfielder from the Pirates, who he didn't even play the whole month, but his numbers were so ridiculous. Austin Meadows batted .409, 4 homers, 7 RBI, and 3 stolen bases. And that's continued right into June. He's hit at least 1 home run in June. He had a big home run yesterday. So what a pickup, what a call up he has been for the Pirates.
And that's one of those guys, like we said. How do you send him back down?
Yeah, you can't.
If somebody comes back from injury or whatever the reason that he was up there because of Starling Marte, right? Originally,
I don't know if it was Marte or if somebody got hurt or what happened,
Dickerson,
but yeah, it was probably
somebody went out.
Marte,
and
I know Marte did miss some time. And you're gonna look at Corey Dickerson and Gregory Polanco starting to lose some playing time to this guy because they're gonna keep him in.
How could you not though?
They're gonna get him.
How could you not? There's a bunch of teams in the same similar situation where they got guys they just can't send down. Acuna came up. He tailed off prior to his injury, but Acuna came up and immediately made impactful, meaningful starts for a team. And once that happens, and once even if you're not going to start him every day, I understand that you don't want your next superstar here riding the pine, but you figure out a way to get him in the game.
You do. And another guy kind of in the same boat is the 19-year-old Juan Soto from the Nationals, because they got some guys coming back. He is hitting the cover off the ball. He's not putting too many out of the park, but he's batting. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but he's got to be batting .360, and he doesn't strike out. He's right there, almost even with walks to strikeouts. And you got Adam Eaton coming back soon, but I still don't see. Adam
Eaton plays like an MVP.
You started the service clock
when he's
on
there.
Soto already, so
you can't.
What's the point of sending him down when he's
major league ready?
He's crushing the ball at 19.
You want him going to hit home run? Who's the Washington Nationals affiliate in AAA, Dave?
It's Syracuse right now.
Oh, it is.
For one more year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How did I
for one
I'm
more
ingrained
year,
into the whole
Syracuse.
Mets changeover with Syracuse. I thought that it had already happened.
But he hadn't even played in AAA. Juan Soto. He got called up from AA, and he'd only played.
So is that where you want? That's where you want to go put Juan Soto?
Right.
He's taking major leaguers deep. He's playing impactful, meaningful innings for your major league team, and you're going to send him back down? No, it can't happen. Austin Meadows, the same thing. Yep. Walker Buehler wasn't supposed to be up for the entire season, but the same thing. Jack Flaherty, another guy. These are guys you can't send down.
I saw a stat on Soto yesterday because he had 3 hits yesterday, and he's the youngest player since Pudge Rodriguez in 1991 with multiple 3-hit games. That's a long time ago.
Speaking of Pudge.
Yeah,
very interested in what you talked about.
We talked about him last show just a couple days ago.
Hadn't heard much about him, but hey, he's a pitcher.
He pitched today.
Did he?
Started today. He had
You gonna pick him up?
I didn't pick him up. No. I didn't see how his start ended up, but I think he went through 6 innings and gave up 1 run. I didn't see what happened at the end of the game, if he got the victory or not. But yeah, he had a good showing today. So
you might end up
Derek Rodriguez
with the no-name pickup of the year. I mean, like the Gleyber Torres, everybody wanted. Well, not in our league, everybody didn't want him, but those are the guys that everybody had been hearing of. But Sir Anthony Dominguez.
How about Sir Anthony Dominguez? I think Z should change his name to Sir Anthony Donaldson. Sir Anthony
Dominguez. How about that for a pickup for the Gaff? For the Shockers. Show him the jersey. Look at that. The Shockers.
Gabe Kapler is kind of unpredictable, so I'm not thoroughly convinced that Sir Anthony Dominguez is going to be the closer for the Phillies every time that they have a save opportunity. Kapler's kind of mix and match, and granted, some of the options have been pretty bad. Hector Neris hasn't been good. Ramos has been a little shaky. He's been all right, but Sir Anthony Dominguez is killing it. Like, I think he's given up 2 hits in his Major League Baseball career, and now he's up to probably 14 or 15 innings pitched. Has not given up a run. So yeah, he was kind of an under the radar. I had never heard of him honestly until maybe 3 weeks ago. But I took notice, and he had a 2-out save the other day for the Phillies, and he's one to keep an eye on, man. He's interesting, and it's an interesting story.
Neris isn't going to get that job.
I don't think so.
He might get save opportunities, but
pitches like this.
Another closer change worthy of noting. Not that they're winning many games, but the Miami Marlins making a closer change to Kyle Barraclough. So fantasy guys, if Kyle Barraclough is out there and available, drop Brad Ziegler and pick up Kyle Barraclough.
Dave's checking out Sir Anthony Dominguez's stats, and he says 0.15 whip.
That's good, right?
That's good, right? He's good, right? So, yeah, very, very talented young pitcher there in Philadelphia who could be their closer for many, many years.
And very, very soon.
If Gabe Kapler doesn't ruin it, we'll see.
Well, it's working so far. And speaking of working so far,
I got to throw out one quick other shout out for a rookie, too, because there are so many good rookies. You mentioned Walker Buehler. How about Miguel Andujar? He's leading the Yankees in extra base hits right now. Miguel Andujar is. With all that talent in that lineup, your Judge, your Stanton, Didi went just nuts in the month of April, and Miguel Andujar leads the team.
He leads all of Major League Baseball rookies in extra base hits. I believe his stats were somewhere in the 295 range with like 20 doubles already, right? Disgusting.
That sounds about right, yeah. I want to say he had 26 extra base hits when I saw the stat yesterday.
And he had 6 home runs.
Yep.
I don't know if he has any triples, but yeah, he's killing it. That's another guy. What do you do with Miguel Andujar?
Yeah, I mean, he's another one that's hitting, and you can't send him down. That's why you saw Ronald Torreyes get sent down, who is known as a good clubhouse guy, a good solid utility infielder, and they had to send him down because if not, you got to send down Andujar or cut ties with Neil Walker, who has been a good solid player for them for what he is. He's had his ups and downs too, but still a good value for them to hold on to on the roster. So, yeah, Andujar has played his way onto that roster, and I don't see that changing, barring a trade or something unexpected. So many good young rookies out there in the majors this year, and it's cool, and it's exciting to see this young talent. And we're going to talk about the stars of the future in the draft in a little bit. One other quick note. Mike Trout is on pace to have a 12.8 WAR this season, Fangraphs WAR, and that would put him at 67.7 across 8 seasons. And if you project that over 22 seasons, it would be 186. Babe Ruth's WAR was 168.
He's going to beat him.
Of course, he'd have to produce at this pace for the next 14 years in order to reach that 180 mark that he's projected to be on pace for right now. But I thought that was an interesting stat. So that just tells you, I'm not saying that he's the next Babe Ruth or anything like that. So Hopefully nobody puts words into my mouth on that one.
The best player in the game.
It just shows you how incredibly talented he is and what numbers he is
curious to
putting
know
up.
how many people he's already passed. I mean, notable players that he's already passed in 8 seasons. Like 20-year guys, 15-year guys that he's already passed in career WAR in 8 years. What he's been able to do, it's remarkable.
It is. It really is remarkable.
And Mookie Betts on the shelf right now.
Mookie Betts is hurt.
So who
Dustin
knows if
Pedroia, too,
could
speaking of Boston.
Give Mike Trout the edge here going forward.
Betts is out with
the MVP.
Some kind of abdomen injury. I don't know the specifics of it. Dustin Pedroia for the Red Sox also back on the DL with soreness in his surgically repaired knee. We mentioned Clayton Kershaw back. I don't know if he's back on the DL or not, but he has hurt his back, and he probably will be on the DL if he is not. And another notable injury from the NL West, another player who is having a very good year so far. Brandon Belt is now injured. Well, he's got appendicitis, Brandon Belt, so he's going to miss time with that. A story about a guy, he didn't get injured playing baseball, but the Danny Farquhar story. You're familiar with that whole thing, I assume.
Had an aneurysm?
He did, and he threw out the first pitch the other day. He came back to the ballpark. So that was cool to see, and it looks like he is on the up and up, and he should be all right. Close call, life-threatening, scary thing. So Danny Farquhar feeling a little bit better throughout the first pitch.
Yeah, no baseball activities until next year, but hopefully we get to see him throw a real pitch in Major League Baseball. Everybody in Seattle was touched, and of course Chicago, but even Seattle, where he came from previously, very touched. So, yeah, really good moment. I was happy to see that. And quick, too.
Inside the baseline.
Inside
Danny
the baseline. He can stay there until he makes his return. He can stay inside the baseline as far as I'm concerned.
So let's talk about some we'll give a high-level overview of the standings for anything that's worth mentioning. Atlanta is in first place, a game and a half above Washington. They had a walk-off win against them today. So they gained another game in the standings there. The Mets are in a bit of a free fall. They've lost 4 in a row. It's turned into a mess there.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about the Mets.
It's turned into a staircase
in a segment later on.
A staircase
in today's show.
In Mets land.
Marlins have lost 5 in a row, so they're still at the bottom of that division. Milwaukee Brewers still holding down the first place spot in the NL Central. Chicago Cubs a couple games back. They've won 4 in a row, but their bats are actually pretty cold right now. I don't know if you saw the game yesterday. The Cubs played the Mets this weekend, and the Cubs ended up winning the game in 14 innings, but they struck out 24 times against the Mets. They left 32 runners on base in that game, and they ended up winning 7-1. They ended up scoring 6 runs in the 14th inning and winning the game, but the bats are cold.
24 times.
24 strikeouts and 32 runners on base. They struck out twice in the first inning with the bases loaded, and it continued throughout the rest of the game until the 14th inning. They're still doing good as far as the standings go. They have won 4 in a row. Their pitching has been pretty good, and they're hitting barely enough to win some of those games. Their bullpen has been great. Nothing has really changed much in that division since we last talked. The Cardinals are 7 games over 500, right in the middle of that division, not too far back.
They'd be right up amongst the leaders in a lot of divisions in baseball,
including the NL West.
Yep. So
we talked about that a little bit earlier. The Diamondbacks have taken first place.
You
back.
Talk about a free fall, though. That's a free fall.
Yeah,
because they looked on pace to just run away with it.
They were one of the best teams in baseball a month ago.
And I still don't think that they're not. But I guess that I wasn't ever sold on them being one of the top 3 or 4 teams.
They were
baseball.
A surprise.
They were definitely a surprise.
As were the Mets for a few weeks.
A few. More on the Mets later to come. I mean, what happened there? What happened? It can't just be Matt Harvey. It can't just be things of that nature, and it can't just be injuries.
You can't blame it on Matt Harvey anymore. He's in Cincinnati, and things are getting worse without him. But yeah, like you said, we'll touch on the Mets. They had a really, rough week, and we'll go into some detail about that towards the end of our show, one of our segments. And they're under 500 for the first time this season since our last show. In the AL, the Yankees have taken over first place just by half a game, and Boston is yet to play today. They have a chance to tie that division up with the Yankees.
The Yankees are idle today because of the rain.
Yeah, once again
in Maryland,
rain
that just won't stop.
Weather wreaks havoc.
What is going on yesterday? What is that about? 1:35 start or 1:15 start yesterday, and they bring the tarp out like at 11 a.m. They put the tarp out. Not a drop of rain fell in Maryland. Well, maybe in Maryland, but not on that stadium. Not a drop of rain fell, and they pushed it back to a 4:35 start. What is that about? What is that? That just sounds to me like you're just not trying to play the game.
Yeah, there's been some strange things with delays and weather this year, and I don't know. That was another weekend where they lost 2 games to rain. Tampa Bay.
It just keeps happening.
Tampa Bay has lost 3 in a row.
When are they going to sell, Sean? When are they going to sell? Archer looking okay lately. Now's the time again.
Snell had a great start today.
I don't think they're going to sell him off, though.
No, he's part of the core of the future there.
Archer looking okay compared to how he looked earlier in the season. He looks a lot better. He's doing himself a little bit of but as we talked about in the beginning of the season when he started to tank, and we said Tampa's got to get it done. Probably before the trade deadline, they got to get this done. Now's the time. You got to trade him where he's at his peak value. You got to get the max return for him and really kickstart that. A lot of interesting. We're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Rays farm system coming up here because they have an interesting guy playing down there in high A ball right now, who they're talking about as maybe the Shohei Ohtani of the United States, and he's down there proving people wrong that you can't start off in the minor leagues playing the position. He's playing first base and he's pitching. So we'll get to that at some point in time.
I think you're going to see more of that now. Now that Ohtani has kind of been the big name, media coverage, all the hype about it. You might see that a little bit more.
Is there going to be a Jabba rules type situation scenario that's going to happen? Is that going to happen? I don't know. Is that going to be the Ohtani rules? That's because that's really the precedent?
Yeah, it's all new. We don't know yet how this is going to be handled.
They limit him. They limit him to a degree.
Yeah, and part of it is it's not just the 2A thing. Part of it is because he is so young too. So it makes me wonder if 3-4 years go by. I wonder if they will handle him the same way, or if they kind of take the reins off a little bit and say, okay, instead of once a week, now you're starting on every, your 5 days rest type thing, or if he drops one of them altogether, we'll see. Toronto, Baltimore at the bottom of that division. Cleveland, first place. They've lost 3 in a row. Bullpen's a mess there. Detroit, not really doing too much. They've lost.
They're hanging in there, though.
They're hanging in there.
They're hanging in longer than they need to.
They do.
Really
they are.
It's not fair to that organization for them to hang around and be competitive right now. And I know that sounds very cynical, but they need to not be swayed out of selling what they can sell and getting what they can get for what they have.
Yeah, and they're 3 games under 500. It's not like they're really having a good year, but they, the Indians have had some rough bullpen outings that have kind of made that division way closer than anybody thought.
The poor Twins.
The Twins have won 3 in a row. They're creeping back into it. They're 3.5 behind Cleveland.
Who knew coming into this year that is not where Minnesota wanted to be? That's for sure. Getting some guys back, but also losing some guys. Buxton back out again. But you don't know what you're going to get with him either. He's the type of guy that is very streaky from what we've seen so far.
It's been a very streaky season in general in Minnesota. They've won several in a row, then they'd lose several in a row, and now they just happen to be on a 3-game win streak. We'll see if they can turn it around. They are only 3.5 back, so they probably wouldn't have taken a 25-30 record, but if you told them, hey, you'll be 3.5 games behind the Cleveland Indians on June 3rd, they may have taken that. But we'll see. They've won 3 in a row. We'll see if they can continue it or if it gets back into the cycle and they start losing again. Kansas City and Chicago at the bottom of the division, no surprise there. When we decided to talk about kind of news and notes about the standings, one of the most notable things to me was that the Seattle Mariners are now tied for first place in the AL West with the Houston Astros. They've kind of went on a bit of a run here unexpectedly with Cano going down and D. Gordon missing some time. D. Gordon is back. But, they are in first place and playing good baseball in Seattle. Houston's right there. They're tied. The Angels are 5.5 back now. They've slipped quite a bit over the last few weeks. Oakland 31-29, winning record. They've kind of hovered around that 500 mark for a while, and then Texas at the bottom of the division there. So that's kind of your general standings update. Not a ton has changed since last time we had a show. I mean, it was only 3 days ago, and we talked about it last. So the most notable things, like I said, was Seattle taking over first place. The Yankees took over first place in the AL East. Granted, it's only a half a game, and Boston could very well tie that up in a matter of hours here.
Too many rainouts. What are they, four games back of games played? 5 games back now of the Red Sox?
I think it was 4 last time we talked about it.
It pains you as a Yankee fan because you don't
get
to watch them, but it also pains me as a fan knowing that going into some stretches here in June and July, they're going to have to, coming up here tomorrow, they got a doubleheader against Detroit. They're calling up somebody from the minor leagues, undisclosed pitcher, a pitcher to be named later to start the second game behind Luis Severino in the first game.
It's a mystery.
But, that could be taxing to a team. It could be really taxing to play that many. You already don't get many off days as it is in June. So to have to play these doubleheaders, man. Mother Nature out of the baseline. We're just going to keep her out of the baseline.
Dave's chiming in, and you had mentioned you were wondering who was trailing Mike Trout in career WAR. Now, who he has already passed in his career, and he's got a list of some extremely well-known baseball players that Mike Trout has surpassed. Hank Greenberg, Willie Stargell, David Ortiz, Kirby Puckett, Bobby Bonds are all in Trout's rearview mirror in career WAR. Thanks for that.
Yogi
thanks for looking that up for us.
And Vlad Guerrero just past Ichiro. Look at that list of Hall of Famers you just read off, and Bobby Bonds. Hall of Famers and Bobby Bonds.
That's in 8 seasons.
8 seasons.
Incredible stuff.
Hank Greenberg. Who are the Shockers? Wichita State.
They're
also
there's 2 answers to that question. The Wichita State Shockers college baseball team and the reigning EC Fantasy Baseball League champions at the moment are the Shockers. We'll see. I might be taking first place by the end of the day, but I got some innings overages to deal with. Speaking of the Shockers, why don't we get into
Smash you, boy.
Why don't we get into our 3 up, 3 down segment now?
Absolutely.
That's a good segue to get into some fantasy baseball talk.
Yeah, right. I don't have my own palette, so I had to use these.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine for that. I think that's definitely more than appropriate. It's mad at you, boy. So
you got innings to make up, man. What's the matter with you?
I do. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But
I'm just still in awe of the list of players that Trout
incredible.
has passed.
It really is.
Yogi and Vlad Guerrero, Yogi Berra, MVP
for how good he is.
10 World Series, 11 World Series.
Because it's the West Coast, or if it's because the Angels have had a few rough seasons, or what. But he just doesn't seem like he gets his due for being as amazing a baseball player as he is. I know he's recognized amongst your diehard baseball fans. All know Mike Trout is the best player in the game, but
it annoys me so much when I see somebody say that he's not. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was pretty much it. It's any diehard baseball fan knows Mike Trout is the best player in the game, but it really does seem like he doesn't get his due amongst your casual fan. But I don't know. Maybe that's the West Coast thing, or like I said, the Angels not being in the postseason for a few years. But I mean, people talk about Ohtani more than Trout, and with good reason, because it's a completely different storyline. But it's funny that he is actually kind of overshadowed in the media by a teammate when he is the best player in the game.
He's overshadowed by a lot of guys too, across Major League Baseball. Maybe not as flashy or as showy, or I think it what you already said. It boils down to the West Coast thing. Nobody sees him.
That's the thing, yeah.
Nobody sees him play. You put Mike Trout in Yankee Stadium every night. You put Mike Trout in Fenway Park every night. He's, the biggest deal ever at that circumstance. And I'm sure that, what he's done so far certainly merits him being the biggest deal ever.
Absolutely.
I can't stand people that's, even want to argue that he's not the best player in the game. It annoys me because he is. He's the best hitter in the game, too.
Mike Trout belongs on the 3-up list every single week. But this week we have outfielder from the Pittsburgh Pirates that I mentioned. He's the NL Rookie of the Month, Austin Meadows. 404 average this season, 5 homers, 8 RBI, 3 stolen bases. We already kind of touched on him, so I'll keep it brief. But he's going to be getting some playing time going forward, and he's a nice pickup. He's probably still out there in a good majority, maybe not the majority, but maybe a third of leagues in Yahoo. You can probably find him on the waiver wire still, and he's worth a pickup now because the numbers he's putting up are very, very good. He's over 400 average, like I said. Another outfielder on the 3-up list is somebody that is not a young star like Austin Meadows, or a young star to be. It's an old star, a guy who used to be one of the most dominant players in baseball, an MVP candidate almost every year going back 5-6 years ago. Matt Kemp, who is back with the Dodgers, has just had a resurgence. He's batting .347 on the season.
Still leading the National League?
I believe so. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's batting .347. I would imagine he is. He was when we talked just a few days ago. 9 homers, 33 RBIs, and he's owned in only 68% of Yahoo leagues. So about a third of leagues he's out there to grab, and even if this doesn't last, ride the hot streak there. He's worth a pickup. So the third one is a pitcher from the Atlanta Braves that we have mentioned a few times on this show and who just had an absolute star-like outing the other day. Complete game shutout 2-hitter, Mike Foltynewicz of the Braves.
Listen, kicking myself for not picking him up when I should have.
Yeah, Fred McGriffey, our league mate, who is right up there at the top of the race. I think he came in today in second or third place, but he picked him up and got a huge boost from Mike Foltynewicz's start the other day. He's got a 2.22 ERA on the season.
Yeah, so my
1.16.
How many weeks have I been texting you?
Yeah, we've talked about him several times.
Not that we're in cahoots or anything, because
we just discuss
players,
and
it's like, you know what? Neither one of us had room for him.
That's what I told you. I am not in the market for a starting pitcher. My roster is at its maximum right now.
I took Jack Flaherty instead of Foltzy at one given time, and now I'm not regretting that move at all.
No, Flaherty's been very good too.
But, not picking up, not just dumping like a guy like I got Archie Bradley rostered. Probably should have just picked up Foltzy. I punted saves already anyway. So,
Yeah, Folty's having a good year, 80 strikeouts and 69.
He's upside down on that, and last I looked, he was around like a 1.2 whip, which really good, really solid numbers.
1.16 after the last game he had after the complete game shutout.
Going deeper into games, I believe he is in the last 4 starts, and again, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but I think the last 4 starts he's given up 3 earned runs combined. And that
sounds about right.
The one before that, he gave up 6 earned in like 4 innings. The start before that, and before that, for the rest of the season, he hasn't given up more than 2 earned in any start for the whole season.
Yeah, he's been very good. Him and Sean Newcomb there have really kind of taken over the top end of that rotation. They're having very good seasons.
And coming in, you're thinking it's going to be Julio Teheran,
right?
And it doesn't need to be, because he's always been pretty streaky.
Yeah,
so. Good things going on down there with Foltzy and
very
Sean
good
Newcomb.
things. Now, a place where there's not so good things happening is Baltimore, and one of their pitchers, Kevin Gossman, finds himself on the 3-down list this week.
Just one of them? Just one pitcher from Baltimore?
Yeah, I could have put Cobb on. I could have put the whole
Alex
pitching
Cobb.
staff
Oof.
on there. But Kevin Gossman the last 2 weeks has a 7.53 ERA and a 1.88
firsthand the other night.
whip. And he's not going to get barely any wins especially on a team that's not that good to begin with, unless Manny Machado goes out and hits 4 home runs when he's starting.
He's already doing.
He's not going to get.
He's already doing that. he's already having a sick year. Machado amongst the league leaders in home runs, RBIs, extra base hits, on base percentage. He's just.
And Kevin Gausman only has a month or 2 months left of that to benefit from anyway, most likely.
He might only have a month or 2 months left of that to deal with that because he might get traded himself.
Yeah, we'll see if anybody wants him at this point. There's going to be plenty other.
Why would Alex Cobb too?
Yeah,
and that was the whole thing with Baltimore getting the Alex. How bad did we shake our heads at that trade or that signing when we were waiting for Alex Cobb? One of our first shows, we're waiting for Alex Cobb to land. And
it was one
and
of
he
the
lands,
most
and it's just
confusing.
a head scratcher, especially the years and the money they gave him. I don't know if they thought that was going to look like a friendly deal, but now it just looks awful.
It was easily one of the 2 worst or most confusing free agent signings was the Alex Cobb to Baltimore and then the Jose Bautista
to Atlanta.
And now he's with the Mets involved in that whole.
Even that's confusing. But Alex Cobb, we scratched our heads about the Alex Cobb to Baltimore thing to begin with, and now it's just blowing up in their faces.
Yeah, it's
because he's not worth much, and nobody's going to take a shot at him. I believe he's signed for 3 years.
Yeah,
why would
he's got at least 2 more
take,
years on his deal.
Why would you take that contract on now? Looking the ways that he just looks like he's not giving it his all. Even if it's
why would you take it on now when you weren't willing to?
The
give
peripherals
it to him
can't be good on him, based on his record. What he's out there doing can't look too very good.
No, it can't.
So why would you? I don't know. Baltimore Orioles out of the baseline for that signing of Alex Cobb when you know damn well coming into this season you're not going to compete in the East and you're going to be sellers. And Manny Machado only has 1 year left and he's not coming back to you. So go and do that.
Also
just
finding himself on the 3 down list this week is Jed Lowry of the Oakland Athletics.
It's unfortunate.
Just 192 with no homers and 4 RBIs over the last 2 weeks.
It's unfortunate because he was so hot.
He had a very, very good start. He was hitting the cover off the ball, and he has just fallen off a cliff over the last couple weeks.
And as Jed Lowry goes, so go the Oakland Athletics then, right? Because
Matt Olson's heating up there. So I believe Chris Davis is hurt now, though.
Yep.
So yeah, they've got their own issues.
2 games over 500. Tough division though.
Very tough.
With the Angels still looking like a better, more complete team, a little more star power with the Angels anyway than the Oakland Athletics and the Mariners and the Houston Astros up at the top of that division. Oakland's going to have a tough hill to climb, but still 2 games over 500, you'd be right in contention.
You mentioned
in
the
other
Angels,
divisions,
and there's an Angel that is the third of our 3 down.
Totally hijacking your 3 up, 3 down.
No, it's good. It's all good, man.
My bad, man.
So the third of the 3 down this week is a Anaheim Angel, or Los Angeles Angel of Anaheim, I should say.
Get it right, man.
And
Get it
he
right.
is a former first overall pick in the 2005 draft of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that is outfielder Justin Upton, who is batting just 143 with no homers and 1 RBI in the last 2 weeks. He has been in just a colossal slump.
But you want to know what Justin Upton's going to do at some point in time is he's going to go for 2 weeks.
This is nothing new for him.
He's going to mash 12 home runs.
This happens all the time
2 weeks
for Justin
and
Upton.
then this is going to happen again. And his career numbers are going to even out in play to where they typically do. But I didn't realize that he had been that bad.
Yeah, over the last few weeks. But like you said, this is not really anything out of the ordinary for him. He goes through these ridiculously cold stretches, and then he'll just go, just a month of on fire, just crushing the ball. We'll see if it happens. The Angels certainly need it. They're slipping in the standings a little bit. So that's your 3 up, 3 down for this episode.
3 up, 3 down.
And that is brought to you by Priceless Inspections. A good quality home inspection is
priceless.
Call Josh Amodio at 315-525-8725 for your next home inspection. He provides in-depth and detailed reports, thorough inspections, and he pays attention to details. Josh has been in the construction business just about his whole life, and he knows the importance of a quality home inspection. Call Josh before you put your home on the market. If you're looking to buy a home or if you just want to update your home, Josh can do all that for you. Call him today, 315-525-8725. That's 315-525-8725. I think that brings us to our seventh inning stretch if we want to do that and then kind of do a little bit of a draft preview afterwards.
Yeah, we could do this. Well, let's do the seventh inning stretch first.
Yeah,
and then our eighth and ninth inning, we'll bring in the closers about some of this,
I like
this draft stuff. We got the Detroit Tigers on the clock right now, officially for tomorrow. So I can't wait to get into a little bit of draft talk. But now we're going to get into some real all-time drafty talk here, right? We're going to get into our seventh inning stretch where we're going to give our top 7 number 1 overall picks and our top 7 worst number 1 overall picks.
The bust.
Can you really call it a top 7? I saw your record the other night on the news. You made their Hall of Shame. So, yeah. Let's start it off. We'll start it off right now. I'll start it off with number 7 for the top. We'll start on the positive note here. And I'm going to go with Harold Baines.
I like it.
Harold Baines.
Yeah, he came close to 3,000 hits. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I want to say he had maybe 20, somewhere around the ballpark of 2,500 hits, 300-something home runs, too. So he had a good year. He's not in the Hall of Fame, but he missed the mark on some of those milestones just by a little bit. So he's not a Hall of Famer, but he was a perennial all-star and a slugger, one of the best sluggers from the 1980s and early 90s. So I like it.
Harold Baines.
All right,
308 times.
308, okay.
308 times. He hit 308 times.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you were saying 308 homers.
No, he had more than that. He had 2830 in hits. How is Harold Baines not a Hall of Famer?
He's right there.
I mean, he's one of those guys, but he's got 2,830 hits. He hit 308 times, and 10th in RBI was 1628. In AL history, he's 10th all-time in RBI, and he ain't in the Hall of Fame. So maybe on the Veterans Committee someday we get Harold Baines rocking for maybe induction into the Hall of Fame. But Harold Baines, number 7. Who do you got for number 7 all-time busts?
The 7th most all-time bust player of all time is a guy named Al Chambers, an outfielder that was drafted by the Seattle Mariners first overall in 1979. He ended up only playing 57 games in his whole career, and he retired by age 24. Andy Van Slyke is a notable player that was in that draft. I think he was maybe 6th overall.
New Hartford, New York.
The St. Louis Cardinals, I think, drafted Van Slyke, right?
Yes. He started off as a Cardinal.
Al Chambers, 1979, is my number 7 bust of all time.
Al Chambers. Sorry, I got a little technical difficulty going on with one screen, so I kind of got to veer over to the other, and I ain't got my reading glasses on me. My number 6, I'm going to go with a guy. I got a couple guys here that are currently playing, and some that are recently retired, because for the longest time, that number 1 draft pick status was kind of a busty status. There wasn't too many really, really good number 1 overall picks, as evidenced by some guys, never even having a number 1 draft pick in the Hall of Fame.
There's been some really good ones recently, though.
But I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Joe Mauer.
Joe Mauer.
We're going to go with Joe Mauer.
The pride of Minnesota.
Yeah, and like I've
Mr.
highlighted
Minnesota.
I've highlighted before for Joe Mauer is what I honestly think for him is he's going to be the next manager to Minnesota Twins. Right?
I think manager, next GM or president.
He's going to be he's definitely going to have a position willed to him with the team as soon as he's done playing. But he's a career 300 hitter, 308, 138 homers, not really eye-popping, 886 RBIs. The transition to first base kind of killed him in a way in terms of his value, so to speak. But still, career on-base percentage of 391. Not going to do the eye-popping numbers. He's not going to get to 3,000 hits more than likely. How old is he?
I would guess 35, somewhere around that.
He's 35 years old. He's a 54.9 career WAR. I mean, he's just an outstanding player. I'm looking more in terms of Hall of Fame numbers. Is he going to have the Hall of Fame numbers, the numbers that pop off the page? He's at 2,025 career hits, so 985 more hits. If he averages 150 hits a year, he's still got to play. He's still got to play into his 40s and produce into his 40s. So maybe he doesn't get to the 3,000 metric.
It's a long shot, but it's certainly possible.
But if, in today's game and the way that on-base percentage is weighed and, certainly average will be weighed. If he finished career 300 hitter, multiple All-Stars, he's got at least 3 batting titles, maybe more.
A couple of years is one of the best, if not the best catchers in the game.
He's got an MVP. Well, that's what I mean. In terms of Hall of Fame numbers, does the move to first base does it hurt him? Because he was considered a very good catcher. But they, obviously for longevity purposes, they wanted to move him over to first base. But, yeah, that's my number 6, a guy that's currently playing and starring still for the Minnesota Twins. Hitting 283. He's only got 1 homer and 11 RBIs. He's been on, I believe he's on the concussion DL.
I believe he is right now.
Or maybe not the 7-day concussion DL, but out due to concussion reasons, or maybe he's recently back. I haven't been up on my Joe Mauer lately, but that's my number 6 for top 7, number 1 overall picks.
My number 6 bust of all time is a player that is actually playing in the major leagues right now and has actually carved out a solid career for himself as a pitcher. But he was drafted as a shortstop in 2004, number 1 overall by the San Diego Padres, Matt Bush. And when he was drafted, he was just thought at as the next superstar shortstop. And he got himself into all sorts of trouble off the field, was arrested for assault multiple times, was arrested for driving under the influence. He spent several years, I believe, in jail. And he obviously was a complete bust for what the Padres thought he could be. Good for him for supposedly so far he hasn't had any problems. He's cleaned himself up, and he is a pitcher now for the Texas Rangers, and he's a solid bullpen guy there. But the Padres could have had Justin Verlander at number 1 overall that year. He ended up going number 2 to the Detroit Tigers. So instead of Matt Bush, the Padres could have had Justin Verlander in that draft in 2004. So that, to me, was worthy of the number 6 spot.
Ouch.
On the top 7 busts.
Ouch.
Of all time.
Anytime you pass up on a career like Justin Verlander's. But, it's we'll get to it at the end because you'll realize at the end that there's a noticeable lack of one position for all of these really outstanding top number 1 overall picks. There's a noticeable lack of a position. So maybe Matt Bush falls into that category. But anyway, I'm going to get to my number 5, and it's, again, pretty early to be given this guy, but the lack of, I guess, overall top number 1s that have really busted out kind of lets me get somebody that's currently playing and not too far into his career, and that would be Bryce Harper. All right, so Bryce Harper, already an MVP, Rookie of the Year, 5-time All-Star, Silver Slugger winner, 281 career, 168 homers and 461 RBIs already at this young in his career. About to sign an absolute whale of a contract. So I got Bryce Harper as my number 5.
We talked
25 years old.
We talked a little bit about him before we went on the air, and we both agreed that he was kind of a difficult guy to rank in here. He certainly belongs on the list. And right now I think 5 is a good spot. That's kind of where I had him slotted to when I kind of just went through a quick list of what I thought would be the top 7 number 1 overall picks. But he's kind of a hard guy to rank just because he is so young, and he's got so much time ahead of him. And you could see him maybe ending up as, I'd say, maybe number 2, maybe even number 1 on this list someday. Are
we ever going to get 2015 Bryce Harper back?
Probably. He's only 25.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. 2018, 118 runs scored, 42 homers, 460 on base percentage. It makes me laugh. I can't even. 1109 OPS for the season in 153 games. He hit 330. That's just insane. 124 walks. I'll take it. I would take that every single year, and obviously that's his MVP year. But Bryce Harper, definitely worth mentioning, and he's creeping up the list at such a young age. 25 years old. He's number 5 on my list.
I like him at number 5 right now. So your number 5 bust as a number 1 overall pick is outfielder Sean Abner, who was drafted.
I remember him.
1984 by the New York Mets.
Yes.
And he played 6 seasons.
Yes.
Only hit 11 home runs over 6 seasons as a number 1 overall pick, batted .227. And a couple of the guys that went just 5 to 10 picks after Sean Abner that year that the New York Mets could have picked, Mark McGwire, Greg Maddux, and Tom Glavine. And to think about, Tom Glavine being on there and Maddux and them being a key part. Of course, Maddux was with the Cubs first, but with them being a key part of a division rival's just crazy run of division titles, that they could have grabbed one of those guys in that draft instead of Sean Abner, that really stings too. So I got Sean Abner, 1984 number 1 overall pick, is my number 5 bust of number 1 overall picks of all time.
Sean Abner. Sean, if you're out there, text the baseline. Let us know what you're up to today.
He's not doing the name Sean justice, I'll tell you that. He does spell it S-H-A-W.
Yeah, so it's not even close. That's not Shawan. He's more akin to Sean Dunston than he is to you, buddy. I'm going to go with my number 4. I'm sure you had him slotted somewhere close, too. We're going to go with the Straw Man.
Yeah,
Darryl Strawberry, drafted number 1 overall, made his major league debut 1983 at age 21 and made an instant impact, winning Rookie of the Year, and he was an all-star in 8 consecutive seasons after that, posting some disgusting years with the world champion New York Mets. Really just the class of that lineup for the world champion New York Mets in 1986. 1988, 39 homers, 101 RBIs. That's the boy, Straw Man. Some really impactful home runs for the New York Yankees.
Talking Homer, Ozzie, and the Straw. And he had a good run with the Yankees, too.
He did. And such a great resurgence to see, especially for that 1998 team. Coming back from cancer, 24 homers and 57 RBIs and 345 plate appearances at age 36. All right, that's good for him. All right, that's all I got to say.
Last update I saw of Darryl Strawberry, he's actually doing very well.
He's got to be doing better than Doc Goodwin.
Yeah, Darryl Strawberry, last I heard, and who knows with these guys, things can change by the minute, but last I heard, and I saw some interview of Darryl Strawberry, I forget what he was even talking about, but he looked very good. He looks like he's healthy and hopefully clean, and that's good to see. So the Straw at number 4.
Straw Man.
Number 4 on the number 1 pick bust list is the first pitcher on this list for me, and that's a guy named Brian Bullington.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else.
The Pittsburgh Pirates, and there might be another Brian on this list later.
There's got to be another Brian. There has to be.
Brian Bullington was picked number 1 overall in 2002 by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and his major league numbers 1-9. With a 5.62 ERA was his major league career as a number 1 overall pick. And Zach Greinke went number 6 in that draft.
Ouch.
Prince Fielder went number 7 in that draft.
Poor Prince Fielder. Our first mentions of Prince Fielder on this show. Poor Prince Fielder.
Is that our first mention of Prince Fielder?
I don't know.
I feel like we must have mentioned him before. But maybe you're right.
I
can't recall a specific moment.
I can't recall it, so, it may have not happened.
Oh, you know what? I do remember.
The first
we
time.
did mention him because when Encarnacion had the inside the park home run, we were talking about him chugging around the bases.
Yes.
Prince Fielder came up. So
yes. So Prince Fielder, buddy, you're getting your, in addition to your $345 million.
He was such a fun player to watch.
He was great.
Prince Fielder.
He was great because he didn't care that he was huge. He played like a skinny second baseman. I loved it. He just dropped bombs. bombs.
That swing he had, too,
Yeah,
was vicious.
Yeah, it was like playing wiffle ball in the backyard. The only thing you're trying to do is hit it over the hedges. That's all he was trying to do, was punish the baseball and kind of chug around the bases. Prince Fielder. I miss him. I really do. I wish he
the Pirates in 2002 could have had Prince Fielder or Greinke, but ended up with Brian Bullington, who is number 4 on our list.
Brian Bullington. It's a name he probably hasn't been mentioned on the radio outside of Pittsburgh in, better
It's
part of the
probably
last
been a
7 or
while.
8 years.
It's probably been a while.
Number 3 on my list, going to cause a little controversy with this one, I guess, but I'm going to go with Alex Rodriguez.
Ooh.
A-Rod. We wouldn't have gotten to him yet were things different with Alex Rodriguez and the situation. We wouldn't have gotten to him yet because he would be number 1 on every list ever. 295 career hitter, 696 home runs, 2,000, 2,100 RBI, 400 stolen bases, somewhere around there. I got to get A-Rod's numbers in front of me, but here. 696 home runs, 329 stolen bases, a career on-base percentage of .380, 117.8 career WAR, 2,000 runs scored, 3,000 hits. He's number 1 for me if the cloud of doing it clean isn't sitting there.
Not to mention those numbers would have been even higher without a whole suspended season in there, and that he probably would have continued to play. Maybe not that many more homers, RBI, but there would be more on there.
10-time Silver Slugger, 3-time MVP, 2009 World Series champion, 3-time Major League Player of the Year, 2-time Gold Gloves, 14-time All-Stars, and a batting title. Got a batting title. Last time I checked, steroids don't make you have good hand-eye. But that's a debate that we are waiting. We're actually waiting for our boy Caleb. You're supposed to be here today too. So if you're watching the rebound on anywhere, disruptionnetwork.net, YouTube, Twitch.
I actually noticed that he quickly popped in for a few minutes on our live stream.
You're supposed to be here today, man. What are you
got to get you down
to
here,
us?
man. We got to get Dave down here too. Dave,
Yeah, Dave,
you need to
gotta
get down
come
here and talk some baseball with us. We'll talk about any topics you want. We can do any 7th inning stretch or any categories you want to talk. You can pick it all, buddy. So you tell us when you can make it down and sit in with us, and we'd love to have you, man.
But yeah, under normal circumstances, A-Rod would be my number 1. And I have him at number 3 because, we've already kind of talked about the steroids thing and where I sit on it and who was doing it and who wasn't and what it was against, what rules it was against. And I think steroids or no steroids, we're still having this discussion on Alex Rodriguez, regardless.
I agree completely.
It
affects where he ranks on there, but
he was not ever going to be.
He would be on this list.
He would be on this list, and he would have done all the things that he did, all of them. He would have done all of them. So that's again a conversation for another time. What were you thinking? Type thing. But it is what it is. Pressure to live up to a 10-year, $275 million contract. Can do a lot to somebody. So, A-Rod, I've always been on your side to a fault, and I'll continue to stay there. But for now, you're 3rd on my list. And, due to distinction for my other 2. So, who you got for your number 3 all-time bust?
My number 3 is a player that was drafted number 1 overall in 1971 and in 1975. He was drafted number 1 overall 2 separate times. The first time in 1971 was by the Chicago White Sox, and in 1975 he was drafted by the, at the time, California Angels. Catcher Danny Goodwin ended up with 13 homers in his career, 7 years, batted .231. He was drafted first overall twice. The first year they could have gotten Hall of Famer Jim Rice, the White Sox. And in 1975, the Angels could have picked Andre Dawson. Hall of Famer Andre Dawson.
The Hawk.
And Danny Goodwin, with his 13 career homers, .236 batting average, was drafted ahead of both of those guys.
Look at the comps on those 2 players you just said. If you kind of funny offshoot there is like, could they be any more identical?
I know it's kind of
players.
Fun, yeah. They had the chance. Well, it was two separate teams, but
still,
the White Sox and the Angels each had a chance at Jim Rice or Andre.
What he was number 1 out of high school and then went to college. Is that was the deal?
Yeah. Yep.
And then
went to college, and I forget where he went to college, but I had that note somewhere else, but I didn't think it was even worth bringing up for poor Danny Goodwin. I don't want to embarrass his alma mater.
No, well, I mean, it might be good exposure for the car dealership that he works at.
That could be. It very well could be. So Danny Goodwin, you're number 3 on the number 1 overall bust list twice.
Lots of people getting their first mentions in a while. Lots of people. So
we haven't mentioned Old Hoss Rayborn in a while. He's not on our bust list.
No, not a bust at all. Neither
Old
is
Hoss Radborn.
Neither is his Twitter account that somehow magically continues to keep going, even though he's been dead for 100+ years. It just magically keeps spitting out fire. So Old Hoss Radborn, you are still inside the baseline.
Always will be.
My
old friend of the show.
My number 2 is actually my next 2. Kind of near and dear to my heart. My number 2, though, was honestly, no joke, he was my favorite player in the game the entire time he was in the major leagues. I would have ranked him as, I would have always said that's my favorite player. I love Derek Jeter. I did, and they played at the same time. I used to call it non-Yankee.
Played in a World Series,
but I used to call it non-Yankee. You know what I mean? My favorite. No, you're not your favorite player in the game, but your favorite non-Yankee, because it really didn't count because of how passionate of a Yankee fan I was. Right? It didn't count. That's not really your favorite player, but I mean, honestly, he was. I used to really enjoy watching his teammate, Greg Maddux, and I would catch so much Chipper Jones. TBS would carry the Braves. Chipper Jones at number 2. And one of the reasons for this being the distinction,
one of the best switch hitters in the history of baseball.
Top three in my book. Seriously. What this guy did as a switch hitter, as a cornerstone for the Atlanta Braves, throughout his career, was just remarkable. So there wouldn't have been any time that I would have told you that he wasn't one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player in the game. So Chipper Jones.
Dave's chiming in quick, going back to Prince Fielder. He says he has a food show on Amazon now, and it's called Fielder's Choice.
Oh, how amazing.
He's had Ken Griffey Jr., Dexter Fowler, Tony Gwynn Jr., a bunch of baseball celebrities on, and it looks like it's him and his wife that do the show. So that's pretty cool. I want to check that out. Prince Fielder talking food. That sounds like a marriage made in heaven right there. So you got Chipper Jones as the number 2 top overall draft pick of all time, and my number 2. I've mentioned the Mets a couple times, and it's another Mets draft pick. In 1966, the Mets drafted catcher Steve Chilcott.
Oh,
he never played.
It's another guy. Oh, no.
Never played. Number 2 overall draft pick, Reggie Jackson. The Mets could have drafted Reggie Jackson in 1966 and took Steve Chilcott, who never once played a single game for them or any other team in Major League Baseball. So the Mets, 1966.
Like Sam Bowie. It's like taking Sam Bowie instead of Michael Jordan.
It might even be worse. At least Sam Bowie played a couple games.
That's brutal.
So 1966 Mets draft pick Steve Chilcott is number 2 on my all-time worst number 1 overall draft picks list.
The next guy for me, the number 1 overall pick, the number one overall pick, very special. You look at this right here. Backwards cap.
Yep.
Might be an indication. Ken Griffey Jr.
Now, you talked about Chipper Jones as being your favorite, quote, non-Yankee growing up.
Yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr., it was by far and away my favorite non-Yankee player. I loved Ken Griffey Jr.
I did. I absolutely loved him myself.
And he doesn't get hurt. You're looking at him being widely considered the greatest baseball player of all time.
Of all time.
I mean, at least of the modern era of since we were alive anyways. So we'll save that debate of, the old school guys of Babe Ruth and DiMaggio and Ted Williams and all that. But, of the last 40, 50 years, I think you would have saw Ken Griffey Jr. be the number one player for
What
that
should we
time
get? What
period
should we give him
without those
numbers?
injuries?
What should we give him on his numbers? 2 years, 2 seasons.
I would say at least, if not longer.
You want to give him 2 seasons at his peak or 2 seasons at his average?
Give him 2 peak years, because that'll kind of be maybe three and a half years.
Two
of
peak years. Let's say he had 150 hits. Actually, I can just scroll down and take a look. You're looking at his top years for hits being in the 185 range. So let's say he has 150 hits twice. That's 300 more hits. That's 30-81 in hits. All right. Let's say he has his top 2 years in home run production, and that's 100 more home runs to his total. That's 730. Let's say he drives in 140 runs each year. That's 280 more. That's 2,100 RBIs. You're talking about the career of a god.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just adding 2 years to his career that he missed significant time. And there's not a person in the world that would have said Ken Griffey Jr. wouldn't have put up the numbers that we just said. That's kind of almost a pedestrian year. Not really. 50 and 140 is not a pedestrian year for anybody, but come on.
And not to mention the defense the guy played too, climbing walls and just high.
And that's why he was hurt.
That's why he was hurt. It's kind of similar to how Bryce Harper plays the game, where
he had an out of the baseline moment later in his career with the Chicago White Sox, falling asleep in the dugout.
He did.
That happens when you're the GOAT and you're sitting on the bench.
And that's the worst thing you can think of as somebody's career. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good, right?
That's good, right?
But again, worth mentioning, the only two players ever drafted #1 overall to make the Hall of Fame, Ken Griffey Jr. and Chipper Jones.
How about those mid to late '90s Seattle teams with Ken Griffey,
Edgar Martinez,
and Alex
and A-Rod, who's also
you've got
on our list.
the 2 of the top 3 of your list, top #1 overall picks on that. The 2 top AL ones on the list, I'd say, were on the same team. Incredible. So that's your list of the top #1 overall picks. And to round out the list of the worst #1 overall picks.
Oh, can I guess?
Yep, and I'm sure you'll be right.
We're both
Yankees ties here.
There's definitely Yankees ties. I'm gonna go with one Brian Taylor.
You're correct. The worst #1 overall draft pick of all time, in my opinion, is Brian Taylor. And
Bar fight Brian.
Brian Taylor in 1990, was it 90 or 91 he was drafted? 91 he was drafted. Was one of the most hyped prospects I can remember. And I remember that's, when I was really, really getting into baseball. I had been into baseball for a few years at that point, but that's when I started actually getting into looking up prospects and stuff like that and see, who's the up-and-coming stars. And Brian Taylor was just ridiculously hyped up. And rightfully so. He threw 98 miles an hour in high school,
which was unheard of back then.
Incredible.
That's an everyday occurrence nowadays in high school, but that was absolutely unheard of back then.
It really was
unheard of.
And just this ridiculous fireballer of a kid. And the Yankees drafted him first overall, and then it was just all downhill from there. There was contract negotiation problems with his agent, Scott Boras. Scott Boras was causing negotiation problems in sports even back then. Finally, they come to terms on a deal. I think it was $1.55 million, which at the time was just ridiculous money for a kid who had never played Major League Baseball before. So they finally sign him. And then in 1993, there's a guy named Ron Wilson who lived in a trailer park.
Down by the river?
Down by the river. And this guy, I don't know what the background story was with Brian Taylor's brother and this guy, but this guy beat up Brian Taylor's brother, this Wilson guy. And Brian Taylor goes over to his house and tries to get revenge and stick up for his brother. And he tries to fight the guy, and he just swings at him and misses. He whiffs and just tore up his shoulder, just destroyed his shoulder. So he misses the entire 1994 season. He returns in 1995, And there's a famed doctor, Frank Jobe, that said when he looked at that injury, it was one of the worst, if not the worst, shoulder injuries he's ever seen in his life. So he misses all of 1994. He returns in 95, and he could barely even hit 90 with his fastball. His arm was permanently damaged from one swing at some guy in a trailer park. So Brian Taylor, you were out of the baseline back in 1993, and you are number 1 on the list of all-time busts of number 1 overall draft picks.
Smat at you, boy. Smat at you, boy. Smat at you, boy.
Perfect. Perfect. Smat at you, Brian Taylor.
Smat at you, Brian Taylor. Letting Yankees fans down across the country. It's kind of a touching story, though. If you got to feel bad for somebody he was so hyped up and maybe would have been one of the best of all time.
And obviously it was a stupid decision, but, at the root of it, he was just trying to go stick up for his brother who'd just gotten beat up by some scumbag in a trailer park. And, looking back on it, it's crazy how many millions and how much success. I mean, he could have very well have been part of those Yankees early championship teams. And who knows? It could have been a core 5. You know what I mean? It could have been the sky was the limit for that kid. And
that's right. In the same time frame, he would have been right going into his peak.
It's crazy how just a split second of throwing a punch like that can cause somebody in his position so much money. So that's our 7th inning stretch, our best and worst of the number 1 overall draft picks over the years. And that was brought to you by Steve Ponte Volkswagen. Stop down to their showroom at 5046 Commercial Drive in Yorkville, New York. See why it's easy to do business with Steve Ponte Volkswagen. StevePonteVolkswagen.net. Check them out.
I like that.
So let's talk a little draft, man.
Yeah.
Draft is tomorrow.
So like we said, the Tigers on the clock. I like how Major League Baseball has tried to kind of even it out a little bit in terms of the compensatory round, the compensation picks that are right after the first round. This year there is 6 picks, I believe, after the first round. And what those are retribution when you offer a qualifying offer to a Major League free agent that was signed by you. They go to leave, and you offer a qualifying offer, and then they sign someplace else. That team owes you a draft pick, and you draft at the end of the first round. So where we were talking about the draft kind of being restructured internationally to kind of level the playing field a little bit, if you will, at least Major League Baseball has kind of done a little bit to try to level.
They have made some good changes.
Try to level that off. There's parity in Major League Baseball. LeBron James made the NBA Finals for an 8th consecutive year. And he's playing. How many times is this that he's playing against the Warriors? 3?
I think this is at least 3.
Okay,
if not 4.
Salary caps don't work. The rich continue to get rich and play the system, and the poor continue to stay poor. And the NBA is just even weirder with their draft lottery, where you can finish with the worst record by 10 games. You can be by far the worst franchise in the NBA and not be guaranteed to get that number 1 pick. I guess it prevents tanking, but still.
Yeah, and tanking has been a huge problem in that sport, so that's why you see it there.
Yeah, but
it's harder to tank in baseball. I mean, you can trade away a lot of players, but
it is. But
the season is so long. It's not like in basketball where it's a short season and you call it by a month left in the season, and okay, let's tank now and lose every game and move up the draft order list. But it's not impossible in baseball to tank, and it likely has been done many times. But it's there's more players on the field, and there's a lot more factors than 5 guys on a basketball court.
So noticeably absent from our list of the top 7 number 1 overall picks was pitchers.
Dave, quickly, before you get into that, he says Taylor ended up in prison on cocaine trafficking charges too.
Wow.
So, yeah, it kept getting worse and worse for Brian Taylor. And
staying out of the baseline he is.
He's firmly outside of the baseline.
So, noticeably absent from that number 1 overall pick thing was starting pitchers. And I find that very strange considering the number of number 1 picks overall that are
it is odd.
starting pitchers.
And there's a lot of really good ones that went, like, number 2 was Justin Verlander, and you saw Strasburg was number 1 overall a few years ago.
And that's worth an honorable mention, I guess, is Steven Strasburg and Garrett Cole having an outstanding season with the Houston Astros. So he's another one that's gone number 1 overall. So maybe in 5 years that list changes a little bit. But this year, 2018, first-year amateur player draft, tomorrow, the Detroit Tigers are on the clock, and by all accounts, they're going to go with right-handed pitcher Casey Mize out of Auburn.
Yeah, he's the odds-on favorite.
The odds-on favorite.
Number 1 overall.
So hopefully he busts or the recent trend. Maybe he continues with the recent trend of Strasburg and the Coles, and he comes in and makes a good impact. But
by all accounts, too, that there is no like slam dunk franchise player in this draft, like say a Bryce Harper or a Steven Strasburg even. But yeah, by the consensus rankings in word from around baseball, for people who are really dialed into this, Casey Mize is at the top of the list.
Yeah, hey, you can't argue with it. By all accounts, plus fastball, wipeout slider, a real power dominant game, a big league frame that plays well to the game. So, hey, maybe they know.
It's even possible
I'm sure they've done their homework.
It's even possible you see Casey Mize in the majors this year at the end of the year just as a bullpen arm. We'll see what happens. It's happened before with Chris Sale and a few others, Brandon Finnegan, Cincinnati Reds. And it's unlikely, but Detroit is pretty aggressive with their young players. They tend to call them up pretty early. So it's unlikely, but who knows? It's something to keep an eye on, assuming Mize does go number 1. You might see him in the majors later in the year. The
San Francisco Giants, number 2 on the board. A lot of accounts have them taking catcher Joey Bart from Georgia Tech. We're going to get to another Georgia player later on, or a guy from the state of Georgia when we talk about what the Yankees are looking to do in the first round. But Joey Bart, speaking of him here, complete package behind the plate. Pretty good offensive stick, looking at him being a middle of the order type guy, and possibly a guy that the San Francisco Giants can entrust with the pitching staff after Buster Posey is maybe not necessarily put out to pasture, but potentially moved for the Joe Mauer effect. What we talked about,
maybe first base down the road.
First base, Buster Posey did not catch in college. Buster Posey was a second baseman, I believe, with Florida State. Second baseman, shortstop, something to the effect of. So he didn't. There's not a whole lot of miles on those knees. But
what a great way to bring up a young catcher is to have somebody like Buster Posey on the roster playing first base, who can almost be like an extra coach for this kid.
That sucks, right?
Yeah,
seriously. But so right. So that's what they're talking about for the Frisco Giants. The Phillies, the White Sox, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Mets. With the next few picks, you're looking at guys like Matthew Libator, Nick Madrigal.
How about Alec Baum from the Wichita State Shockers?
Alec Baum out of the. Oh, I forgot to mention the Shockers.
Shockers.
Third baseman Alec Baum, Wichita State, potentially slotted to a team like the Phillies or the White Sox, drafting their 3 or 4. We're going to get to an interesting team here, the San Diego Padres. As I mentioned, what I'm looking at right now has Matthew Libator slotted to the San Diego Padres. But according to most accounts out there, the San Diego Padres have the number 1 farm system in Major League Baseball right now.
And Matthew Libator, too, is, just to touch on him real quick, is a high school pitcher.
Yeah.
So he's a prep pitcher. Most of the other guys at the top of the draft are there's a couple other high schoolers, too, up there. Outfielder Jared Kelenic. But most of them are college players. So he is one of the highest-ranked high school players on the board, left-handed pitcher Matthew Libator. But, yeah, getting back to San Diego, I completely agree. And it's not just what is in the farm system now. They have a lot of really good young players in the majors. And even if they're not all producing up to levels.
They can't even get Hunter Renfroe a start.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, even if you got a guy like Hunter Renfroe and then you
There's
got
Eric
Manuel
Hosmer,
Margot there and some other good young players. There's
Christian Villanueva.
Yep, Villanueva, like you mentioned earlier. Very good quality young talent at the major league level. Some of them aren't putting up big numbers. Some of them are struggling a little bit. But that's not to say that those guys won't be good next year or the year after that. And then, like you said, a wealth of talent in the farm system right now. So maybe things are finally looking up for the San Diego Padres at some point over the next few years.
You
Maybe
got guys like Fernando Tatis Jr. and Mackenzie Gore and Luis Urias and who else is down? The Paul Quantrill's kid, Cal Quantrill, all due to be coming up pretty soon here and making an impact. And they're on the clock at 7 and probably looking to go pitching. So you could see whoever they pick in this first round here be part of the wave of the future with the San Diego Padres. Really modeling themselves after that Astros model.
Even Atlanta Braves now.
Yep, really, really modeling themselves. And speaking of the Atlanta Braves, the Braves were ranked by all accounts number 2 and number 3. Some of the lists I looked at organizations in terms of farm systems out there.
Some of the young pitchers they have haven't even scratched the surface yet.
Yeah,
Luis
Gohara.
I know he's pitched a few innings in the majors,
Yep.
but
Kyle Wright, Mike Soroka, Colby Allard, another guy to keep a lookout on the Braves roster. But, the aforementioned Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies and still Freddie Freeman sitting in the middle of that order. The things are looking up for the Braves and teams like the Padres. You're going to see a resurgence in franchises that have been looking to get it back for a while. Another team worth mentioning before we get back into maybe the draft order a little bit is the Chicago White Sox. A really, really, really deep franchise in terms of farm system. You got Eloy Jimenez and Michael Kopech,
Luis
Robert, and Alex Hansen, Dylan Cease. And then another guy, Blake Rutherford, is a guy to keep an eye on for, in that Yankees trade last season. The Yankees gave up Blake Rutherford for Tommy Canley and David Robertson and the Todd father. So, the richness is down there in Chicago as well. So
they're picking 4th overall, too. So, again, it's another team that is just adding to a wealth of, a treasure chest of young top-end prospects. So they'll get a good young pitcher there, most likely, is what I would expect them to do. But we'll see. They might see somebody that's a position player that is head and shoulders above the rest of the guys left on the board. And a lot of times at the top of the draft, you don't pick for need. You just pick the top talent on the board because most of these guys aren't going to be making an impact for another several years.
So I'm going to jump across the first round. We'll scroll down here. It's not really like the NFL draft. There's not a whole lot of appeal, I guess, into the Major League draft. We're trying to make there be some appeal, I guess. But, teams like the Cincinnati Reds, the Mets, the Padres, 5, 6, 7, Atlanta Braves at 8, the Oakland Athletics at 9, your favorite team somewhere on here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're looking, the Pittsburgh Pirates at 10, the Orioles at 11, the Blue Jays at 12, the Marlins at 13, the Mariners, followed by the Rangers and the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to get to the Tampa Bay Rays here in a minute, but 14, 15, 16, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or Los Angeles Angels, or California Angels.
Whatever they are.
We got to pick a name.
The Angels.
Just stick with it, the Angels. At 17, Kansas City picking at 18, St. Louis and Minnesota, the Milwaukee Brewers, Colorado Rockies, the New York Yankees, drafting 23rd. Probably going to go pitching, if I had to guess, from all accounts that I've seen, looking at going with a guy named Kumar Rocker. I don't know if you happen to see that, but Kumar Rocker, the second guy out of Georgia that we're going to mention today. Big 6'5", 250-pound right-handed pitcher / first baseman right now, but they're just looking him, a high school guy. So when you got a really rich farm system like the Yankees do, you can take a flyer on some of those younger high school guys and see if you can't develop them at the lower levels in rookie ball and then into short season A, and really take your time with them.
A mock draft here that has a shortstop going to the Yankees.
Really?
Bryce Terang who was at one point projected to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft.
Smart.
High schooler. So, and you see the Yankees do that from time to time. They did that with Blake Rutherford. He was kind of his stock slipped a little bit right before the draft, and the Yankees like to look at those guys as potential values because they're usually picking, in the second to third tier of this draft of player drafts. So you see them frequently try to get a guy like Rutherford who slipped a little bit, or in this case, maybe a Bryce Terang. I would be surprised if they picked a middle infielder, but at the same time, like I said, even at this point at pick number 23, you're not necessarily picking for today by any means.
Not by any stretch, not with that farm
And, of
system.
course, you got Gleyber Torres there, and you got Didi there, but you don't know how things are going to play out over the next 3-4 years, and if things work out the way the Yankees want them to, and those guys lock down the middle infield for the next 5 to 10 years, then Bryce Terang becomes a ridiculously valuable trade chip if he gets back to that potential number 1 pick level, and who knows what you get for him down the road. So you see teams look for value here rather than picking for need most of the time. There are, of course, exceptions, but yeah, it should be interesting to see what they do. And like you said, I would most likely picture them going after some kind of pitcher, but we'll see. This stuff is all unpredictable, so we won't know until tomorrow.
Yep. So the Yankees picking at number 23, followed by the Cubs, Arizona Diamondbacks, Boston Red Sox, Washington Nationals. You're defending Houston Astros, defending World Series champion, and the Cleveland Indians, and rounding out the first round. But not really is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the reason I say not really is because we're going to get into that compensation round here. And I think it's worthy of noting some of these compensation picks here. So the way that it works is if you're, like we said, you offer a qualifying offer to a free agent, he doesn't accept it, he signs somewhere else, you're given a pick at the end of the first round. And the compensation round this year, Tampa Bay drafting twice, Kansas City drafting twice, and the Cleveland Indians drafting once. Tampa Bay is drafting for Alex Cobb and for not re-signing Drew Rasmussen. And Kansas City is drafting for Lorenzo Cain and for Eric Hosmer. Cleveland for Carlos Santana, who signed with the Phillies in the offseason. So the way that the compensation pick works, there's a compensation round, and then there's a competitive balance round back-to-back. There's the A and B competitive balance rounds. If a team that loses a qualifying free agent is a revenue-sharing recipient, then the team, if and only if the lost player signs for at least $50 million, is awarded a compensatory pick in round A in the competitive balance round, round A. If the player signs for less than $50 million, the compensation pick then becomes a round B in the competitive balance. So like I said, Tampa Bay drafting twice in the compensation round, Kansas City drafting twice in the compensation round, and then competitive balance rounds are as follows. Pittsburgh drafting again, Baltimore drafting again, everybody basically drafting again. San Diego, Arizona, Kansas City again. So Kansas City with 3 picks in these top 50 picks, based on these competitive balance rounds.
Hosmer,
So
Lorenzo Cain.
You're looking at, plus their normal pick in the first round, you're looking at, a really shitty situation in Kansas City, to paraphrase, turning around pretty quick if you can land some diamonds in the rough here in the first 50 picks. Also looking at the Indians, the Rockies, and the Cardinals in that first round, and then that second round competitive balance, I believe, comes after the second round. And so we're back on the clock with the Tigers, the Giants, the White Sox, and the Reds.
Competitive balance round B is after the second round. And then there's also compensatory round C and compensatory round D, which are after the third and fourth rounds, respectively.
Crazy.
So tomorrow the draft starts, and it's the first 78 picks. So I don't know if they do round B there or if that's just...
Yeah, so the way that where does 78 bring us to? That's the full second round of... full second round with competitive balance B.
Okay, so...
And the compensation picks. That's the first
So
78
day
picks.
2 starts with the actual real number 1 pick of round 3.
Round
basically,
3, and
after
then
the
round 3
compensation
through
picks.
62 or whatever they go to. It's quite a few picks.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't even think that there is a limit.
So this is really the
I think
first,
they just pick until nobody wants to pick players anymore. Like, I mean, it could literally be a round of one team picking. I think it just, at least it used to be that way. I don't know if they've capped that or not, but yeah, at one time it was just you keep drafting until people
keep drafting until you get to Mike Piazza. That's what you do.
And then that's it. Then you get your future Hall of Fame catcher and you're good.
Special mention to Mike Piazza that we're giving so much props to the number 1 overall picks. How about that for basically last, Mr. Irrelevant, as a favor to Tommy Lasorda, or as a favor by Tommy Lasorda to Piazza's father, and ends up going to the Hall of Fame. So only 2 number 1 overalls made it to the Hall of Fame, but Mike Piazza out of that last round there makes it there. So yeah, if it goes through 1 through 78, you're getting the full 2 rounds, the full first 2 rounds with compensation picks and competitive balance rounds, which is awesome if you're a fan of the Cincinnati Reds or the Kansas City Royals or the Tampa Bay Rays, teams that are drafting a bunch in these first, basically 3 rounds, but these first 2 rounds here.
And there will be some future stars, and there will be some guys that just never get heard of again, and nobody will know which is which until
you're definitely not going to know
a few
for
years go by.
Quite some time.
Yep.
For a lot of these guys, almost 10, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Almost 10. Before we really have a scope of what the player was and is and meant to the team and to the game and how valuable the pick was. So in a decade or so, we will revisit this 2018 amateur player draft and see where we rank them. 32nd pick out of northeastern Omaha State is going to be a guy that's on his way to surefire on his way to Cooperstown in a decade. Who knows? That's the way that these drafts work. But I'm glad that we're shedding a little bit of light for people that might think that it's kind of like the NFL draft or the NBA draft, which is only 2 rounds deep. It's not. It's not similar at all. There's a competitive balance to it, at least in the first few rounds, where the most important picks usually take place, right?
If you do want to tune into it and at least check it out for the first couple picks and see what it's all about, it's on at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night on MLB Network, or you can stream it on MLB.com. So anybody with the MLB Network can check that out tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So that wraps up our draft preview, and once again, Brian Taylor, Dave told us about the whole getting arrested for trafficking cocaine, and he could have really used the help of Nick Pasalacqua and Associates. For legal help quick, you better call Nick. Call attorney Nick Pasalacqua and the team at Pasalacqua and Associates, 315-500-NICK. That's 315-500-NICK. CNYtrial.com is where you can find him on the web. Go check out Nick, and if you need legal help quick, you know where to find it.
Lenny Dykstra and Daryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden and Brian Taylor all could have used
Matt Bush.
Nick Pasalacqua. We get a lot of mentions of criminals on this show. Vince Coleman throwing firecrackers into the crowd. You guys need to call Nick. But I think that wraps us up for the night.
I think so.
Right?
I think that gets us to
we
our
did our.
final
I'm
segment.
so used to doing the 7th inning stretch and then segueing into
I know
into what we're about to do.
It was a bit different, but with it being draft
every week,
draft
if this is your first time tuning in with SPG and myself here, every week we like it for everybody to keep it inside the baseline until our next show, right? But we always throw somebody out of the baseline at the end of the show, and this week no exception. I'm going to let SPG take it off on who's out of the baseline this week.
This week was a pretty rough week for the New York Mets. They're under 500 for the first time this season after getting out to a great, promising start. Just about the only thing that is going right for the Mets right now is Jake DeGrom is having a phenomenal season. They just put Syndergaard on the DL this week. It looks like something minor. He should be back probably within the next week or so. But Jake DeGrom is really the only bright spot right now. Maybe Brandon Nimmo. He's having a nice little season. But there hasn't been much else going right for the Mets as of late. They had a rough week. So between the Syndergaard injury, They had a fire at Citi Field in some kind of memorabilia display case. I don't know if any memorabilia was damaged or what, but they had a fire at the stadium. And then it was supposed to be Todd Frazier replica batting practice pullover giveaway day this week. They were going to give away Todd Father batting practice pullovers. And just before the game, I don't know what the problem was with them, but they cited a quality control issue, and they decided to not give the pullovers
Quality
away.
control issue.
That's as much as they elaborated on. So I don't know what it was. If just they were ripping or falling apart, or
the zippers make you get the Franks above
maybe
the beans.
staining people's body. I don't know.
That's probably what it was right there. How can we have these guys go out there in the rain in these pullovers and let them run? All people are going to be turning blue.
They probably had the concession workers put them on before the game, getting ready, and like, oh, dude, you're turning blue.
Violet, you're
We
turning
better not give these away.
violet.
I don't know if that's what happened, but some quality control.
It's pretty plausible.
It is very plausible. Caused them to delay that. And yesterday they struck out 24 Chicago Cubs and stranded 36 runners and still could not win that game. And they're 2 or 3 games under 500 right now. So it's been a rough go of it for the Mets. Rough start to June, rough end of May.
The fire too. That's just so apropos.
Much as I hate to say it,
New York Mets out of the baseline. So yeah,
that's gonna do it for our show. I think
I'm glad that we got to do some stuff for the draft and go over some farm system type stuff. We don't often, we're trying to cram it into some time here, and we don't often get to talk about deeper aspects of rosters and things of that nature. So glad we could get into that.
It was a fun 7th inning stretch.
We had our special Thursday show this week, so kind of got into all the news and notes on that day. So if you're looking for news and notes on this past week or upcoming fantasy players, take a look at our past episodes. You can find us on disruptionnetwork.net. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, as well as all the other great content.
I got to mention an event we have coming up.
Yeah,
at Disruption Network too.
Forgot about that. Yep.
The Empowerment Center block party is this coming Friday, June 8th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Empowerment Center in Utica on 230 James Street. And it's going to be a fun event, man. There's going to be music there by DJ Ease One of Ease Beats and Bizz.
Ease Beats and Bizz.
Grilling with the Utica Police Department, hands-on crafts from BB Design and
Angie checking in today.
Lab.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it.
So she's going to be down there with BB Design. There's going to be seed bombing, a lead safe demo, games as prizes, and the Utica Fire Department's going to be down there too. So check that out. That's this coming Friday, June 8th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Empowerment Center on 230 James Street in Utica.
So that's it, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Get out there, watch some baseball. More importantly, we're swinging into summer, so all of your local baseball, especially around here, the Utica Blue Sox and American
go to a Blue Sox game.
American Legion baseball. There'll be an American Legion tournament coming up here in July, as well as the New York State American Legion tournament that happens here every year.
The Utica Blue Sox are part of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League, and there's been some major league players that come through that. Ryan Yarbrough of the Tampa Bay Rays played for the Utica team when it was the Utica Brewers a few years back, and there's been some other ones too. If you go on their website, it gives you a whole list of players that graduated through that. And it's a fun time to go down there and get some food and watch some wooden bat baseball with some kids that might end up being in the major leagues someday. And like you said, all the Legion ball and all the other stuff that goes around.
Get out.
Here.
Go watch Little League. Go watch something. Get outside. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy the green grass. Enjoy the smell of a leather glove and the sound of a bat, even if it's a ping. Doesn't matter. Get out there. Go watch some baseball. Keep it inside the baseline until next week. You have been tuning into the baseline. I'm JP, SPG. We are out. Thank you.
Join the Disruption Network crew Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center block party, 230 James Street in Utica, from 4 to 6 p.m. Music provided by our very own DJ East One. There will be vendors, grilling with the Utica Police Department, hands-on craft with BB Designs, and Steamwork Ability Lab, seed bombs, lead safe demo. Come hang with Utica Fire Department. That's Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center, 230 James Street in Utica. The block party is hosted by the Homeownership Center, the Mohawk Valley Association,